The marketplace of Zenter was not a place for the weak. It was a dark corner of the galaxy where illegal trades happened every day. Weapons, drugs, rare creatures, and sometimes even living beings were sold for the right price, among the many. Cages lined up under the neon lights? There was one that caught Captain Drake's eye. Drake was a human trader, known for his quick deals and sharp mind. He never cared much about slaves or the lives of others, but something about this particular cage made him stop. Inside the small metal cell, a girl sat quietly, her knees pulled. To her chest, her skin was pale with a slight purple tint. Her hair messy, covering half her face. But her eyes, when they looked up, held something rare, something defiant. She wasn't human. That much was clear. She had delicate features, pointed ears, and small markings on her cheeks that glowed. Faintly, the sign on her cage read, "Personal slave, disobedient but beautiful." She was being sold cheap because she was considered useless. No matter how much they tried, she wouldn't break completely. The alien seller saw Drake watching, and chuckled, looking for a pleasure slave. Human. "She's no fun, doesn't even scream," the seller said. Drake raised an eyebrow. "Why sell her so cheap then?"
Oh.
The seller shrugged. "She won't obey, she won't talk, and she won't die. Most buyers want someone broken, but this one, she's stubborn. No one wants a slave that looks at you like she's still free." Drake stared back at the girl. Her eyes didn't plead, didn't beg for mercy. Instead, they looked at him like she was daring him to buy her, without thinking. "Too much?" Drake tossed a few credits. "I'll take her," he said. The seller laughed. "She's all yours." "Human. Don't blame me if she bites." They opened the cage. And the girl stood slowly, her body thin, trembling, but her spine straight. Drake waited for her to run, to escape, but she didn't. She stepped out and stood silently before him, her head slightly bowed. "What's your name?" Drake asked. She didn't answer. He sighed. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're free now." She raised her eyes, confused. "Free," she whispered, as if the word was foreign to her. Drake nodded. "Yes, free. No more chains." But then, something unexpected happened. She dropped to her knees, her head touching the dirty ground. "What do you want from me now, master?" She asked quietly. Her voice was soft but hollow, like a machine waiting for commands. Drake's heart sank. He didn't expect that. Most slaves tried to escape the moment their chains were gone. Not her. She didn't even know what freedom was anymore. He grabbed her gently by the shoulders and lifted her up. "Stop that. Don't kneel to me. I'm not your master," he said firmly. She just looked at him blankly. "If not master, then what am I to call you?" She asked. "Call me Drake," he said. "Just Drake." He brought her to his ship, the Iron Wraith. A sturdy cargo ship with more space than needed for one person. He showed her to a clean room with a soft bed, but she sat on the floor instead. Knees tucked to her chest again, Drake frowned. "Why are you sitting there?" "The bed's for you." She shook her head. "Slaves don't sleep on beds. You're not a slave anymore," Drake replied. But she didn't believe him. She didn't even understand the meaning of the word anymore. Days passed and Drake tried everything. He gave her food, clothes, and even tried to talk to her, but she barely spoke. Always quiet, always watching. She still did chores like cleaning the floors. Fixing small things on the ship, she worked as if she was still owned one. Night, as they flew through asteroid fields. An unexpected storm of space rocks hit their path. The ship shook violently, alarms blaring. Drake rushed to the cockpit, but a sudden blast sent him flying, hitting his head half-conscious. He heard the systems failing. The ship would crash. If no one fixed the engines, but then, the girl, fragile and thin, ran to the engine room. She moved with speed and precision, repairing circuits, rerouting power within minutes. The engines stabilized. The ship stopped shaking. Drake woke up, fully surprised to see her. "Why did you save me?" he asked. She looked down, her hands stained with grease, because... "I'm property, and property protects its owner," she whispered. That broke something inside Drake. He realized she didn't even value her own life. She only knew one thing. Obey, serve, protect. He looked at her with new eyes. There was more to her. He could feel it. A mind sharper than he expected. Skills she shouldn't have. She wasn't just some slave, and right then, Drake made himself a promise. He would help her remember who she really was. No one deserved to live in chains, not even in their mind. And so their strange journey together began. Captain Drake watched her carefully as the days passed. The girl moved like a shadow, silent and obedient, always cleaning, repairing, waiting for the next command. But Drake never gave her orders. He didn't buy her to be a servant. Yet she acted like one because she didn't know anything else one morning. Drake sat at the small dining table on the ship, eating his meal. She stood quietly in the corner, watching him. "Come sit," Drake said, motioning to the chair opposite. She shook her head slightly. "Slaves do not sit with their masters." "I told you, I'm not your master," Drake said firmly. Still, she didn't move. "We're frustrated," Drake asked. "What's your name?" She went silent, her eyes blank. I don't know," she whispered. "They called me Thing Toy. Sometimes just Slave. But I don't remember my real name." That answer hit Drake harder than he expected. She didn't even remember her own name. It was like her past had been erased completely, replaced with commands and pain. No one deserved to forget who they were. "All right," Drake said. "Until you remember, I'll call you ... Lyra, Lyra." She repeated softly, tasting the name on her tongue like it was a foreign word. "Yes, Lyra. Sounds better than Thing, right?" She smiled. She nodded slightly, as if unsure whether she was allowed to like it. For weeks, Drake tried to make Lyra comfortable. He gave her freedom to explore the ship, access to the system logs, even the library of human history and stories. Sometimes he caught her watching old human movies, her eyes wide with wonder. She didn't understand the emotions or the stories, but she watched them anyway. But no matter what he did, she still slept on the cold floor beside her bed one night. Drake found her curled up under a blanket on the floor. "Why the floor again?" he asked. She looked up. "I don't deserve comfort, slaves don't." Drake sighed. "You're not a slave anymore, Lyra. When will you believe that?" She looked at him with those glowing eyes. "When I believe I'm more than property." That answer haunted Drake. One day, during a cargo delivery to a human colony, pirates attacked them. Drake fought them off. But one pirate slipped past and aimed a blaster at Drake's back. Before the shot fired, Lyra jumped in the way, knocking the pirate down with a metal rod. She fought with speed and precision, her movement sharp and calculated. When the danger passed, Drake stared at her. "Where did you learn to fight like that?" he asked. She looked confused. "I don't know. My body just moved, like it remembered what I forgot that night." Drake sat alone, thinking. Lyra wasn't just any slave. She had skills, instincts, knowledge buried deep inside. No ordinary slave fought like that, or repaired engines like a trained engineer. He knew there was more to her story. Drake decided to investigate, using his contacts. He secretly ran scans on Lyra's genetics and brain activity. What he found shocked him. Lyra's DNA matched the royal bloodlines of the Valari, a noble alien species known for their intelligence and power. Somewhere along the line, Lyra had been captured, her memories suppressed, and her identity stolen. She was not born a slave. She was born a princess, or at least someone of high status. When Drake looked at her again, he didn't see a broken girl. He saw a stolen legacy. He kept this secret from her, afraid it might overwhelm her fragile mind. But he promised himself he would help her find the truth, because she deserved to know who she really was. Meanwhile, Lyra watched Drake when he wasn't looking. She didn't understand why this human was different. He didn't beat her, didn't command her, didn't take advantage of her weakness. Instead, he fed her, protected her, gave her a name for the first time. She wondered maybe she wasn't just property. Maybe, just maybe, she was someone worth remembering. But deep inside, fear remained. Because if she remembered who she was, what else would come with it? Pain? Betrayal? Or something even worse? Drake didn't have the answers yet. But one thing was clear. The girl he called Lyra was more than a slave, and her story was only just beginning. Drake couldn't ignore it anymore. There was something strange about Lyra, something that didn't match the life of a personal slave. She wasn't just a quick learner. She was brilliant. Whenever something on the ship broke, she fixed it. Faster than Drake's best engineers ever did, she understood human machines, alien tech, even old systems from forgotten civilizations. Yet every time Drake asked how she knew these things, she would just lower her eyes and whisper, "I don't remember one evening." After a long cargo run, Drake found Lyra in the engine room. She was sitting cross-legged, surrounded by wires and circuit boards. A holographic projection floated before her, complex codes and energy diagrams spinning in the air. She was rewriting the ship's engine program, a program written by top human scientists, and she was making it better. Drake watched silently. Amazed, he stepped closer and asked, "Where did you learn to do this?" Lyra looked up, startled like a child caught doing something forbidden. "Don't know, my hands just remember," she said quietly. It was like her mind was locked. But her body still held the knowledge of who she used to be that night, when Lyra was asleep on her usual floor spot. Drake sat in the cockpit, contacting an old friend. His friend was a data broker, a master at uncovering hidden histories. Drake sent a scan of Lyra's genetic code, hoping for answers. Hours passed before the broker called back, his voice shaken. "Drake, where the hell did you find her?" the broker asked. "What do you mean?" Drake replied, "She's not some common species. She's Valari royalty. Her DNA markers match the royal family of Valor Prime, the most advanced civilization before the Empire collapsed." Drake's heart raced. Valor Prime had been destroyed. In a civil war decades ago, their royal family wiped out, or so the galaxy believed. If Lyra was royalty, how did she end up as a personal slave in a dark market? "There's more," the broker added. "Her brain scans show artificial suppression. Her memories were wiped, but not erased. They're buried deep. Someone powerful didn't want her to remember who she was." Drake sat back, staring at the stars outside. Lyra was a lost princess, stolen and broken. Her mind locked away like a hidden vault, and yet her skills, her instincts, they all leaked through the cracks of that broken mind. But if she was a princess, then someone dangerous must have wanted her forgotten. And if those people discovered she was alive, they'd come to finish what they started. Drake knew he had two choices. He could leave her on the next planet, stay out of the fight, live his life in peace, or he could help her find herself, unlock the truth, and face whatever danger waited in the shadows. Drake chuckled to himself. He was never one to walk away from a fight or from a person who needed help. He looked at Lyra sleeping, her face peaceful yet fragile. He couldn't abandon her now. The next morning, Drake handed her a small, shiny device. "What is this?" Lyra asked, tilting her head. "It's a neural key." "Oh, yeah. It might help unlock your memories," Drake explained. Lyra stared at it, fear flashing in her eyes. "What if I remember? And I don't like who I was," she whispered. Drake knelt beside her, his voice steady. "Then we'll deal with it together, Lyra. But you deserve to know the truth about yourself. You're not just a slave. You never were." Lyra held the device, her hands trembling. She didn't know if she was ready, but for the first time, she felt she wasn't alone in this. Somewhere deep inside her, a spark of hope lit up. A small, fragile hope that maybe she was more than what her chains had made. Her, maybe. She was someone important, someone worth remembering. And as the ship flew through the endless stars, Lyra stared out the window for the first time. She wondered, who was she, really? And what would she find when she finally remembered? The decision was made. Lyra held the neural key tightly, her fingers trembling as if the small device carried the weight of her forgotten life. Drake watched her, silently hoping she would be strong enough for what was coming. He had seen men broken by memories they wished had stayed buried. Would Lyra survive hers? Drake knew they couldn't risk using the neural key just anywhere. If her past came flooding back too fast, it might kill her. But there was one place that might help. An ancient temple hidden on a remote planet called Val Yuan. Legends said the temple was built by the Valari themselves, long before their empire fell. It was rumored to awaken the minds of those who had forgotten who they were. The journey was dangerous. The planet was surrounded by dense asteroid belts and guarded by rogue AI drones left behind from the old wars. But Drake was determined. If this was the key to Lyra's past, no threat would stop him after days of careful flying and near death. Escapes, the Iron Wraith landed on Valhuin's surface. The sky was violet. With twin suns burning low on the horizon, the air was thin. The land covered in silver grass that shimmered like metal under the light. They stood before the temple. Its massive stone doors covered in alien carvings. Lyra stared at it, something deep inside her stirring at feels. Familiar, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. The doors opened slowly. As if sensing her presence inside, the temple glowed faintly, walls humming with ancient energy. In the center stood a circular platform surrounded by floating crystals. "This is it," Drake said. "Are you sure you want to do this?" Lyra nodded, fear in her eyes, but determination in her heart. "I have to know," she said. She stepped onto the platform, holding the neural key to her temple. As soon as it touched her skin, the crystals activated, spinning faster. A beam of light shot from the ceiling, enveloping her. Lyra screamed as images, sounds, and voices flooded her mind. She saw herself in royal clothes, standing in a grand palace. She saw her parents, tall, graceful beings with eyes full of pride. She remembered studying science, strategy, and diplomacy. She remembered laughter, love, and duty. But then, the betrayal. Her own guards turning on her, capturing her. A shadowy figure ordering her memories erased. Her identity stripped, they turned her brilliance into obedience, her pride into silence. Lyra fell to her knees, clutching her head, the pain unbearable. Drake ran to her but couldn't step onto the platform. The energy shield kept him out. "Fight it, Lyra," shouted. "You're stronger than they wanted you to be." Lyra gasped for air, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to give up, to let the darkness take her. But then she remembered Drake's words. "You're not a slave. You never were," she screamed, the light around her exploding in brilliance. And then, silence. The crystals stopped spinning. The light faded. Lyra collapsed, breathing heavily.
Ow.
Drake caught her as the shield dropped. "Lyra, talk to me," he pleaded. She opened her eyes and they glowed brighter than before. I remember," she whispered. "I am Lyra Valari, daughter of House Valari, heir to the Velar Prime throne." Drake's eyes widened. "You're a princess," he muttered. Lyra nodded slowly. "They stole everything from me, my family, my mind, but not my soul." But as relief washed over them, Lyra suddenly tensed. "They'll come for me now. Drake, the ones who betrayed my family. If they find out I'm alive, they'll kill us both." Drake smiled faintly. "Let them try, but you won't face them alone." Lyra looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time, not as a master, not as a savior, but as an equal. For the first time in years. She stood tall, her back straight, her eyes sharp. She was no longer just a slave with a forgotten name. She was a princess reborn, and her fight was only just beginning. The stars never stayed silent for long. By the time Drake and Lyra left the ancient temple of Valhuin, the ripples of her awakening had already reached dangerous ears. In the dark corners of the galaxy, a name once thought dead whispered, "Again, Lyra Valari." And that name was a threat to powerful people who had rewritten history with blood and lies. Drake didn't need a warning to know they were being hunted. The Iron Wraith's sensors picked up multiple tracking signals across space. Assassins, bounty hunters, warlords, all wanted the last Valari princess dead, and the reward. Enough credits to buy entire planets, but Lyra was not the same fragile girl anymore. She had remembered who she was. Her mind was sharp again, her hands steady. She rebuilt the ship's defense systems, improved its engines, and reprogrammed old weapons with technology only Valari royalty knew. Still, even with all their upgrades, their enemies closed in. One night, deep in an asteroid field, an ambush struck. 3 sleek warships surrounded them. Blocking every escape route, a voice came through the comms, cold and sharp, returned the girl, "Human. And we'll let you live," Drake chuckled. "Yeah, and if I say no? Then you'll die screaming like the rest who crossed us." The voice hissed. Drake looked at Lyra, who stood beside him in the cockpit. Her eyes glowed faintly, her expression calm but fierce. "I'm not running," she said. "Didn't think you would," Drake replied with a grin. "Ready to see what a princess of Velar can do?" Lyra smiled faintly. "Let's remind them. The battle began with fire and chaos. Laser blasts lit up the asteroid field, debris spinning wildly. Drake piloted the Iron Wraith with skill, weaving through the rocks. Lyra controlled the weapon systems, targeting engines, firing plasma cannons with deadly precision, but the enemy was prepared. A boarding party managed to latch onto the Iron Wraith, cutting through the ship's hull. They stormed in armored aliens with energy blades, shouting to capture the princess alive. Lyra didn't hide. She grabbed an old energy staff Drake had salvaged and faced them head-on. Her movements were graceful yet lethal. Every strike was a memory of her training. Every dodge a whisper of her royal upbringing. Drake fought beside her, his blaster roaring, his fists brutal when the ammo ran out. Side by side, they fought like a storm, human and Velary. Together they pushed back the invaders, one body at a time, but the enemy was relentless in the middle of the fight. An alien captain cornered Lyra, his blade inches from her throat. "Should have stayed forgotten, princess," he sneered. But Lyra's eyes burned with defiance. "I was never forgotten." "I was waiting," she hissed, and with a swift move, she disarmed him and drove the energy staff through his chest. The enemy fell, and the others began to retreat. Seeing their captain dead and their prize fighting like a warrior, their courage broke. Breathing heavily, Lyra stood among the fallen. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes stayed sharp. She turned to Drake, who was wiping blood from his face. "Still think you're just a slave?" he asked with a grin. Lyra smiled. "Not anymore." But both of them knew this was just the beginning. If the enemy was willing to send armies to kill her, then worse was coming. And yet, standing there amidst the wreckage, Lyra felt something she hadn't felt in years: power. Not because of her royal blood, because she wasn't alone anymore. Drake was there, not as a master, not even as a protector, but as her partner. Later, as they repaired the damage on the ship, Lyra looked at Drake. "Why do you keep fighting for me, Drake?" "I was a stranger, a slave to you." Drake paused, looking at her with a tired but honest gaze. "Because from the moment I saw you, I knew you weren't just a slave. And now you're someone I can't imagine flying without." Lyra's heart stirred with feelings she didn't know how to name, but deep down, she knew she didn't want to fly without him either. Their enemies were coming. Their journey far from over, but for the first time. Lyra didn't feel fear. She felt ready, because the Princess of Velar was awake. The galaxy was about to remember her name. The Iron Wraith drifted silently near the edge of a dying star. Its burning light bathed the ship in crimson and gold. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered, endless and cold, but inside the ship, warmth stirred where it was least expected. After their battle, Drake and Lyra spent days repairing, hiding and running. Each encounter brought them closer. Not just in battle, but in understanding. Lyra was changing, not just regaining her memories, but finding parts of herself she never knew existed. For the first time, she laughed without fear, smiled without pretending, and always by her side. Was Drake the human who didn't just save her, but saw her, truly saw her that night? With the ship quiet and the galaxy vast outside, Drake sat alone in the cockpit staring at the star. He didn't hear Lyra enter, but he felt her presence. She sat beside him, her gaze fixed on the burning light ahead. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Drake muttered. Lyra nodded. "A dying star. Still burning, even when it's collapsing. Strange that something dying can still shine so bright." Drake chuckled. "Kind of like you. They tried to break you, erase you, but here you are still." Burning. Lyra turned to him, her expression soft but curious. "Why do you keep risking everything for me, Drake?" she asked. "I was nothing but a slave to you when we met." "Just a burden." Drake leaned back, staring at the stars. "You were never a burden." "Lyra," he said quietly, "I've seen many things in this galaxy. Greed, cruelty, power, but when I saw you in that cage, there was still a spark in your eyes. You refused to break, even if you thought you already had." He looked at her then, his voice steady but low. I couldn't walk away from that, and the more I knew you, the more I realized. I didn't want to walk away from you. Lyra's heart raced. She had faced assassins, traitors, death, but this was the first thing that made her feel truly vulnerable. Drake. She whispered, but the words caught in her throat. Drake smiled faintly. I know I'm just a human. You're a princess, a genius, a warrior. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't want more than just partnership. He paused, then added, softly, I'd stay with you, Lyra. Not because I have to, but because I want to. Wherever you go, I'll follow, if you'll let me. Silence hung between them, broken only by the hum of the ship. Lyra looked down at her hands. Once chained, once forced to serve, but now they were free. She reached out and gently placed her hand over Drake's. Her voice was barely a whisper, but every word was clear. I don't want you to follow, Drake, she said. I want you beside me. Always their eyes met. And in that fragile moment, they both understood. This wasn't just a rescue or a partnership forged in war. This was something deeper, a connection born from pain. Survival and trust. Drake smiled, his heart lighter than it had felt in years. Lyra smiled back, her eyes brighter than the dying star outside. Then slowly, Drake leaned in, and Lyra didn't. Pull away. Their lips met. Gentle, uncertain, but real. In that kiss, a promise was made. Not of royalty and rank, not of duty and honor, but of something stronger, choice. They chose each other, not as savior and slave, not as captain and passenger, but as two souls who had survived the worst and still found each other. When they finally pulled apart, Lyra chuckled softly. Does this mean I have to start calling? You my consort, Captain? Drake laughed. Only if I get a crown, Princess. Outside, the star continued its slow collapse. But inside the Iron Wraith, something new was born. A love strong enough to defy the dark. A love bright enough to outshine even a dying star. The galaxy wasn't ready for her return, yet here she was, Lyra Velari. The last of the Velari royal bloodline, standing at the edge of her homeworld's orbit, below her. The once great planet of Villar Prime still shimmered with the ruins of a fallen empire, but it was no longer silent. The ones who betrayed her family ruled now, drunk with power. Rewriting history to keep their crimes buried, Lyra stood on the bridge of the Iron Wraith, Drake by her side. Their eyes locked on the planet that had stolen her past. This is it, Drake said, his voice steady. You don't have to do this alone, Lyra smiled, our eyes glowing with that quiet fire that had never fully died. I'm not alone. She replied, not anymore, with Drake's help. Lyra had sent secret signals across the galaxy to old allies, hidden families, and ancient houses that still remembered the Velari legacy. Many believed she was dead. Others thought it a trick. But when they saw her, the princess alive, proud and unbroken, they rallied. Ships from distant worlds answered her call. An armada of the forgotten, the exiled, the hopeful. The battle for Villar Prime was brutal. Space erupted in flames and wreckage. Fighters dancing between the stars, Drake led the assault with fearless precision. Lyra, now fully awakened, commanded. Like a born leader, her voice sharp, her strategy flawless. She was no longer the slave who had knelt in chains. She was a queen, reborn. They fought through space and then down to the surface. In the heart of the capital, Lyra faced the betrayer, the man who had ordered her mind to be wiped, sneered at her. You should have stayed forgotten, girl. But Lyra stood tall. Her staff in hand, I did forget, she said. But I remembered what mattered. I am Velari, and I do not kneel. Their duel was swift and savage. Years of stolen memories didn't stop Lyra from fighting like the warrior she was born to be. When the betrayer fell, bleeding and defeated, the city watched in silence. And then cheers erupted. The people had their princess back, and with her, their pride later. When the dust settled and the enemies fled or surrendered, Lyra stood. Before her people, she could have declared herself queen, demanded power and obedience. But instead, she stood with Drake at her side, holding his hand. I returned not just to reclaim a throne, she told them. I returned because someone reminded me I was more than a title, more than blood, this man, she said. Looking at Drake with warmth, he freed me, not just from chains, but from forgetting who I was. If you will have me as your leader, then know I will never rule alone. The crowd cheered louder. They didn't just see a queen, they saw a legend, the princess who rose from slavery, the human who stood beside her.
Oh.
Drake chuckled quietly, leaning toward her. Didn't think I'd end up as royalty, he whispered. Lyra laughed, technically. But you're my rogue, she added with a playful smile. Years passed. But the story of the princess and her human spread across the stars, a story of freedom, love, and the fight to reclaim one's name. And wherever Lyra ruled, she ruled with Drake by her side. Not as a consort, not as a figurehead, but as her equal, together. They proved that no chain was unbreakable, and that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, love could forge a new empire, one built not on power, but on choice, trust, and unity. And so, the last Volari princess and the human rogue became more than just a legend. They became the heart of a new galaxy, together, forever, among the stars.